Welcome to the Black Shoe Diaries YouTube channel. I always want to say Black Shoe Basic Podcast, still from 2019. The Black Shoe Diaries YouTube channel. As always, your host, Patrick Kerbler, joined by Tim Aiden, back from his 1 week hiatus. Tim, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday night?
I'm doing great, Pat. I had a nice little mini vacation last week, but it's good to be back here and chatting football with you, especially since we are exactly 10 days from the start of the 2025 season for the Nittany Lions. And, of course, very much looking forward to next week when we do our annual schedule preview and, our little marathon session. So
we're going to go 3 hours previewing every single – we'll obviously preview Penn State's schedule. We'll talk about the Big Ten as a whole, and we'll do some national talk as well. So, yes, a longer than normal show. I feel like our shows actually lately have been going well over an hour. We'll see how long this one goes. But, yeah, I think the schedule one, I think it's safe to say will be at least an hour and a half and potentially even hit 2 hours because Jarrett, I expect to be on as well. Anyway, that is for next week. For this week, what we will be doing is just some over-unders. We do this on the blog, and we'll probably write up a blog post about this as well. These are not taken from FanDuel or DraftKings or any of the betting sites. They simply come from my brain. So if they seem way off, by all means, that's why I am not a sports book. But before we get into today's show, please subscribe to the BSD YouTube channel. If you're wondering, hey, where is the BSD YouTube channel? I have great news for you. You're currently on it and you're watching the show. That means that you're on the YouTube channel. So please like the video for us. Anytime you see us go live and you're watching a video, whether it's a preview show, whether it's a post-game show, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel as a whole. Last I checked, we were at 216 subscribers. We'd like to get to 250 by the time the season starts. So, yeah, please
still
subscribe.
Got 10 days to make it happen, folks.
Yes. Make it happen. Tim potentially will give you $1,000 if we get to 250 subscribers. So thank you, Tim.
1,000 BSD bucks. That it.
Sure, BSD bucks, dollars. It's a little fuzzy, but yes, please subscribe to the channel, like the videos. Helps us out a ton. So thank you if you're already doing that, and if you're not, make sure you start to do that. All right, let's get into our first over/under. We're going to bounce back between offense, defense here. We'll do some offense, we'll do some defense. I'm not going to break it out like offense and then defense, but we are starting offensively here with the wide receivers. Penn State takes in Kyron Hudson. They take in Trevor Pena. They take in Devontae Ross. So the question, Tim, is will any Penn State receiver get over 50 receptions this year?
I'm going to take the over on this, Pat. And on top of that, I think you're going to have more than one receiver top 50 receptions. Just from what I've been reading from camp intel, from, like 247 on 3 type sites, sounds like Drew Allar and Kyron Hudson have developed really good chemistry. And Trevor Pena has also been looking pretty solid. Same for Devontae Ross too. But Hudson and Pena especially are the type of guys, like, they're just like the Mr. Reliable, like, go-to possession receivers, and they're the ones that tend to catch a lot of balls. And I tend to think, especially now that Tyler Warren, his favorite target to throw to last year, is no longer around, I think he's going to be relying more on this trio of portal receivers for the passing game. So I'm taking the over on this.
I'm going to go over with you as well. I like Kyron Hudson in particular. As you mentioned, him and Allar having good rapport. We originally had this set at 55. I brought it down to 50 just because when you look back in Penn State's recent history, and even some really good offenses, like what Tyler Warren did last year, having the amount of catches that he did. I don't have that number offhand, but I believe it was in the 90s, if not the 80s for sure. But prior to Tyler Warren, or not taking into account tight ends, wide receivers generally don't really go over this 50-55 area. That's kind of where we had seen it. So Penn State hasn't had a receiver go for at least 55 receptions since 2021. The past couple seasons, we've seen Parker Washington get close. We saw Mitchell Tinsley get close. We've seen Keandre Lambert-Smith get close. We've seen Trey Wallace get close, but haven't had those guys break the 55 reception mark. So 50 seems a little bit more realistic than 55. So I do like Kyron Hudson to go over that. Just barely.
By the way, Pat just looked it up. Tyler Warren had 104 receptions last year.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
you were lowballing it, actually.
Yes. Well, that is the other part of this over-under podcast where, in the past, it was always very simple. Penn State played their 12 regular season games. And then generally speaking, right, unless they made the playoffs, they just had that extra 13th game. Penn State could have 13 games. Penn State could have 16 games. We don't really know. So the college stats count every single game that someone plays as part of their regular season, or they're part of their total, I should say, regular season total, but just as part of their total. So that is like the other dynamic that it adds into this, where, right, if Penn State makes the college football playoff championship game, it's a lot more games for these guys, and maybe we have a couple more overs than we initially expect. But no matter what, whether Penn State plays 13 games or they play 16 or 17 or whatever it might be, I do like at least one receiver, Kyron Hudson in particular, to get this over. If it was 55, I don't know if I necessarily would be going, but at 50, I do like it. All right, sticking offensively, let's go to the running backs, Tim. Penn State gets back Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allar. And the big question for these guys is, can they once again both get 1,000 yards? They did it last year. Kaytron had just over 1,100. Singleton had just under 1,100. He literally had 1,099 yards. So can we see these two go back-to-back with 1,000-yard seasons?
Absolutely, Pat. I'm taking the over on this. And that's not just because the optimist in me thinks Penn State's going to play 16 games, which for those of you doing the math at home, that would include playing in the national championship game. I think the bigger thing to me is not just them both coming back, but also I think they got an upgrade in the running back room in terms of coaching with Stan Drayton. He is regarded as one of the best running back coaches in all of college football, maybe all of football, period. I mean, he's worked with guys like Ezekiel Elliott and Bijan Robinson, just to name a couple of guys when he was at Ohio State and Texas, respectively. And I remember reading some I think it was some interview that I think 247 did with him, and excuse me. And he was saying something about, teaching. One thing that Singleton and Allen can learn is how to anticipate what the defense is going to do before they get the ball in their hands and react accordingly instead of waiting to see and reacting. And also they've been working with the guys on, especially with Singleton, because his biggest thing is making that second level guy miss or making that guy in the open field miss. If he's able to get better at that, and it sounds like they've been working with him on that all offseason. I'm thinking he's going to be much improved in that. He's going to turn those like 10, 15-yard games into, 30 plus yards, or maybe house one, from way out. So I think that, and also supposedly Kaytron Allar, this is the healthiest he's been going into a season. Now, of course, things can always change during the course of a season, but that's another good sign to me. And I'm hopeful you'll see him kind of pick up where he left off during the playoffs last year when he was really finding his stride. So I'm going to take the over on both of them going over 1,000. And I think it will be Nick Singleton's name on the first step in the student bookstore, followed by Kaytron at number 2. So sorry, Evan Royster, but you're getting bumped down to 3rd after this season.
I too have this as an over. I promise you that not all of these, at least for me, maybe for Tim, they won't all be overs, but at least for me, won't be overs. But for the first two, I'm going over. Yeah, it's tough to see unless there's an injury, which, right, like, I mean, Kaytron has dealt with some injuries, nothing ever super serious. And same thing with Singleton. I think Singleton missed one game last year against UCLA, but overall these guys have stayed healthy. So knock on wood, that continues. That's right. Not something that I would necessarily predict, but that's about the only reason that I can think that they're not going to get 1,000 yards. I think Penn State, similarly to how they, especially late in the year, went out of their way to make sure that Tyler Warren was getting his numbers, even against the likes of Purdue. I think that they do a similar thing with Singleton and Kaytron, respectively, to make sure that both of those guys are happy, both of those guys are getting carries, both of those guys are getting their numbers, that there's not one game where Singleton has 195 yards and Kaytron has like 25. And that's just the beauty of both those guys being so good. And, like you're saying, adding different dimensions to their game where, yes, in the past, it's been Singleton kind of as the lightning, Kaytron as the thunder, but hopefully there's a little bit of mixed value there with these guys for this coming season. So yeah, I'm over on this one as well. And you mentioned that you like Singleton to lead the team in rushing.
Yes.
Okay. I like Kaytron. I go back and forth every year with who do I actually like more between the two. And basically whenever people get a little too hot with Singleton, which I feel like generally, right, he's, I don't want to say the more fun running back, but has the bigger plays and stuff like that, I find my subconscious drifting back towards Kaytron. So I'll go Kaytron as Penn State's leading rusher this year, but we can talk more about that next week. All right, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Talk about another one of these guys like Singleton and Kaytron who could have left for the NFL, decided to come back, and that is Dani Denis-Sutton. He had 8.5 sacks last year. We're setting the line at 9 this year, and the reason that I'm setting the line at 9, I originally had this at, I think, 10. The reason I'm putting it at 9 is that getting double-digit sacks is really, really hard in college football. Abdul Carter did last year. Prior to Abdul Carter, it was Carl Nassib was the last Penn Stater that got double-digit sacks. So Etor Gross-Matos, Arnold Ebiketie, they got close, but guys, that were that talented, not getting 10 sacks. So brought this number down a little bit, brought it to 9. Tim, what are we thinking sack-wise for DDS?
Pat, this is one of the – I was taking a look at this earlier today. This was one of the ones I waffled back and forth on. I am going to take the over. I'm going to say 9.5 sacks for DDS. And I think that's due in part with the first 3 games in the schedule. I think he is going to have opportunities to really wreak havoc on Nevada, FIU, and Villanova's offensive lines and get his fair share of shots at the opposing quarterback. So I think he can rack up some sack numbers there. And of course, throughout Big Ten play, he might get a sack or 2 in a game, and that'll gradually, or half a sack, assisting someone. So I think he can gradually build that up, and yeah, including the playoffs. If it goes 16 games, I definitely like the over. I'm going to say 9.5 for Dani Denis-Sutton.
I'm going to go under. Our first disagreement. So I found myself more as this offseason has gone along. Not that I'm, I don't think that Dani Denis-Sutton is not an first team All Big Ten or even an All-American guy. I just think, right, one of the things I saw even earlier today was someone tweet out about, because it was like returning sack leaders in the Big Ten. I think Dani was like 3rd behind an Oregon guy and an Indiana defensive lineman. And somebody had said, like, he did this playing opposite Abdul Carter. Like, imagine what he's going to do this year. It's like, I like, as a positive, I don't know if taking Abdul Carter away and putting Zariah Fisher or Jalen Harvey or Chaz Coleman or, any of these guys on the other side is necessarily going to help Dani Denis-Sutton, right? This isn't like basketball where it's like, oh, now Deni's the number 1 guy. He gets the ball more. Like, this is defensive end in football. Like, Deni's going to get more attention. He's going to see more chips from, a tight end. He's going to see the running back over there as a secondary blocker. Just because until, Chaz Coleman or Jalen Harvey or Zariah Fisher, whoever starts or is playing opposite Dani at defensive end, kind of really shows that they could be a terror. I just don't know if he's going to get the one-on-one opportunities that he got last year, especially late in the season that we saw. So no, offense to Dani on this. I think that, right, like, sack numbers are obviously important for a defensive end. Like, I don't fully buy into like it's about pressures and that stuff. Like, getting the sack is actually really important too, but I don't know if he breaks this like 9 sack threshold doesn't mean that I think he's going to have a bad year. I think Penn State defensively as a whole team will kind of pick up the slack there, but put me down for the unders for our first disagreement, Tim.
So Pat, maybe bonus Dani Denis-Sutton over under on half an interception.
I hope it's over. I hope it's Can we get can we get a rematch with Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl and national championship, and let's get that Dani Denis-Sutton interception and make things right, because I just like on the pantheon of Penn State plays that are just like not ruined, but kind of ruined because of the outcome of the game. That might be number one for me. That was just an unbelievable
number one above Saquon Barkley's opening kickoff return for a touchdown at Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's still number one for me personally, but if I was doing a top three, I think Dani Denis-Sutton's interception would be there.
Yes, well, let's hope that he gets another interception. I believe he has two in his career. I believe he got one as a freshman. I remember him. I think he got one against Indiana as a freshman. So that would be his third interception in his career. So, all right, bonus one. So you have the over on interception. I have the over on half.
I'm going to take an over on.
Okay.
He'll get one interception.
All right, I like it. Sticking with the defense, let's go to linebacker, Tim, where Tony Rojas is expected to have a larger role than he had last year. Only had 58 tackles last year. So the question, Tim, can Tony Rojas break the 100 tackle mark? Once again, this is, if you go back like 15 years, it was like Penn State line. Basically, if you were starting Penn State Mike linebacker, you broke 100 tackles just based on the fact that you were out there and the way the game was played. 100 tackles, a little bit harder to hit nowadays. Only two Penn Staters since 2017 have hit 100 tackles, Micah Parsons and Ellis Brooks. So this doesn't happen all that often. Even last year, Penn State had a couple guys that came close. Jalen Reed, Kobe King, Saki Wheelie all had 96, 97, 98 tackles, but they did not break that 100 mark. I feel like this is probably one of our more positive looking ones, right? Tony Rojas getting all the way up to 100, but there's a reason that I did do this, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, but I want to get your thoughts on if you think he breaks 100.
I think he'll definitely surpass his total from last year, but I think he comes up short of 100. I think part of it's also, I think with the addition of Amari Campbell, I think he's going to rack up his share of tackles, and and I think you're going to see the safeties get pretty involved too. And I think it's also just, I don't know. I gotta see Tony Rojas make it through an entire season healthy. He did have some injury problems last year. So I'm not saying he won't get through. I'm not saying he will get injured at some point in the season, but I'm still a little hesitant to give a guy who had some problems last year to suddenly be healthy an entire season and get 100 tackles, which, as you pointed out, is not something that's really been happening in the last decade.
I'm also on the under here. I did think about making this in the I guess, Tim, my question, where would I have to put this number for you to be an over? Would it be 90? Would it be 85? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but at what point would it be?
I think if you put it at 85, I would take the over. 90, I would have to think really hard about. I think he's gonna be like upper 80s, maybe 90.
Yeah. See, this is one of those
healthy. That is so.
Yeah. This is one of those for me, right? Health aside, that I think is really dependent upon how many games Penn State plays, because Penn State played 15 or 16 games last season. It was Oregon was the 13th game, SMU, Boise, so 16 games last year. And although they didn't get a guy get 100, my guess is, or my prediction would be, that if Penn State made it to the semifinal, or if they made it to the championship game, that this is, Tony Rojas will get this. So I don't want to necessarily say this is like a prediction for, I guess I shouldn't say semifinal, because I am going under, and I mean, we'll talk more about our predictions for next week, but I do kind of have Penn State in that semifinal frame, but I just think the smart money would be on going under here. Although, right, if this was like actually something with FanDuel or DraftKings, I think this would be like a plus money bet, which I would maybe have some interest in. But yeah, going under with Tony. Do think he will have a good season though. Before we move on to the next one, we have 4 more, I believe. Once again, please make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Subscribe. Pause the video right now. Subscribe to it. Honestly, you don't even need to pause the video because it's so easy to subscribe. It's right there in the bottom corner. You can like the video as well. It helps us a ton to make sure that when people search on YouTube, like Penn State Football Show, Penn State recap, anything like that, Penn State football in general, right? Our video and our channel comes up. So please make sure you are subscribed and make sure you like it. And once we hit 250 subscribers, Tim has said that he will give away $1,000. Once again, thank you, Tim, for your generosity.
In BSD bucks.
And BSD bucks.
Not American dollars.
Well, maybe. Who knows?
I don't know what the exchange rate is for American dollars, BSD bucks, but
we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
AJ Harris, right? Not in ESPN's top 100, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. ESPN put out their top 100 players in college football. Penn State was tied with Clemson for 7 players. AJ Harris was not one of them, which I found to be a little surprising. Yeah, they did have Steve Wheatley in there, which I appreciate, but
furrowing my brow at that.
Yeah, I mean, they threw in 7 Penn Staters, so I can understand. But it feels like AJ Harris definitely should have been one of them. Anyway. Over under for AJ Harris, 1.5 interceptions. Last year, he had the 1 interception against Illinois, right? Was basically a pick 6, if not for Zion Tracy's hustle play to get a block in the back in there that for really no reason whatsoever. The reason that I made this 1.5, we originally had this at 2.5 and then realized that when Penn State's defenses under James Franklin, right, over the last 10 years or whatever it might be, it's really the linebackers and safeties that rack up the interceptions. Kalen King is the only non-slot or nickel cornerback to have more than 1.5 interceptions since 2020. So like Daquan Hardy, he's had some 2 interception seasons. Zion Tracy did it last year, but as a pure outside cornerback, does not happen all that often. So Tim, we put the line at 1.5. Do you think AJ Harris goes over or under here?
It's another one that I went back and forth on, especially because I was thinking to myself, well, for usually opposing offenses, when they know how dangerous, how good a corner is, they try to avoid throwing in his general direction as much as possible.
Yeah.
So I initially was thinking under, but then thought to myself, you know what? I think he finds a way to get 2 this year. So I'm gonna go with the over.
I'm gonna go under on this. The reason being, I do think interceptions in a way are kind of just like right place, right time in some sense. A lot of them, at least. I do think for cornerbacks and outside corners in particular, it is more of a skill. Like I think back to Moni Aurier, mouthful, haven't said his name in a while. But he was a guy that when the ball was in the air, he was actively making plays on the ball. Like he just had that innate ability to stick with a wide receiver. And when that ball was in the air to basically make a play on it like wide receiver did. I don't know if we saw a ton of that from AJ Harris last year, which is mostly a good thing because teams really weren't throwing at AJ Harris a lot. But even in the times that they were throwing to him, he wasn't a guy that was, really making a break on the play or putting himself in position, at least for now I remember, to make an interception. So I think we have another really good AJ Harris season. I just think the smart money would be to go under here. And yeah, I think, you kind of mentioned like before how like the opening 3 games for someone like Dani Denis-Sutton might be a chance to like rack up sacks. I think that corner is going to be one of those spots that we do see pretty heavy rotation just because it's maybe the strongest unit defensively. And no offense, but Nevada, FIU, Villanova, it's not like AJ Harris and guys like Elliott Washington are going to need a ton of snaps. So I don't know if we see a ton of AJ Harris those opening weeks where it'd be like, oh yeah, hey, he just got 1 interception, only needs 1 the rest of the year. So I'm going under here. All right, Timothy, let's go to the offense. Jumping back, let's talk about Drew Allar. No Penn State quarterback, Tim. And it's great history, dating back to Rip Angle and Joe Paterno and Bill O'Brien. It's never had a quarterback throw 30 touchdowns. I've made this part of my 5 things I know a couple times when it was Trace and I believe Sean Clifford as well. They did not hit it. Trace came close a couple times, 29 touchdowns and 28 touchdowns in 2016 and 2017. Clifford was always in that 25-ish area. Allar these past couple of years has been in that 25-ish area. Do we get 30 touchdowns, passing touchdowns from Drew Allar in 2025?
I'm taking the under on this, Pat. I was looking at Drew's stats. He actually threw one fewer touchdown last year than he did in his first year to start in 2023. And that was when he played 3 more games last year than he did in 2023 because of Penn State getting to the Big Ten championship and making it all the way to the semifinals of the playoffs. So he had 25 touchdowns thrown in 2023. Last year he had 24 thrown. I mean, I could see him maybe getting like mid upper 20s, but 30 is a real stretch to me because especially when I think about how that ball's going to spread around. I'm not just talking about throwing it, but I mean running it. Singleton and Allar get their share of carries. And we know Drew, he's definitely worked on his set of wheels the last couple of years. And from what I've read, this is the most mobile he's ever been. Now, that's not going to say they're going to do a bunch of design runs from like they did with Trace, but you're going to see him pick up some big chunks in the ground or, also just run it in for a touchdown himself. That just takes away from his chances to, throw for touchdowns. And I do say this knowing that I think, or feeling pretty sure at least that he'll have a better group of wide receivers to throw to. And
Sure.
Of course, the tight ends, Khalil Dinkins, favorite red zone target of his. I don't get too much of the tight ends. I know we're probably going to cover that for an over-under teaser for you, but I think he can match or maybe even surpass his 25 touchdowns passes from last year, 24 from last year. But I have a hard time seeing him becoming the first Nittany Lion quarterback to ever throw for 30 touchdowns in a season.
I'm going over. My view on this is, it's a couple different things. One, while I think that they try to get Singleton and Kaytron, right, their touchdowns as well, it's not like Nick Singleton isn't winning the Heisman, Kaytron's not winning the Heisman. They're going to eat into each other too much. So it's not like a case of, it's late November, they're playing Nebraska or Rutgers or whoever they have in late November. And hey, let's get Nick Singleton 5 touchdowns here, or let's get him 4 touchdowns, right? Like back in the day with like Larry Johnson, where they were just feeding him the ball, trying to get him touchdowns. So that's one thing. I don't think, yes, a lot of Penn State's offense is going to be predicated on running the ball just in general. So certainly not saying that Singleton and Kaytron won't get their fair share of touchdowns, but I don't think there's going to be like a concentrated case to get rushing touchdowns. You mentioned before, like Dani Denis-Sutton with those first 3 games, right? Potentially racking up 3.5, 4.5 sacks, whatever it might be, and almost getting halfway there just in those 3 games. I do think and freaking hope that Penn State uses those 3 games. I'm not saying to toss out the entire playbook so Oregon can scout it, but they need to make a concerted effort rather. They need to make a concerted effort to throw the ball. And I think that they will. And I think that those games can be some games where Allar, kind of pads his stats a little bit, where he can throw for 4 touchdowns against Nevada, where he can throw for 3 touchdowns against FIU, where he can throw for 4 touchdowns against Villanova. And then before you know it, he's a guy that's nearly halfway there through 3 games. So that is, in my ideal world, Penn State is dropping 50 plus points on all 3 of those opponents. We'll obviously talk about those opponents in next week's episode when we talk about the schedule, but I think Penn State scored a lot in those first 3 games, and I think Drew getting comfortable with the wide receivers is going to be a big part of that, and that includes in the red zone. So give me the over here. Give me the over, and just because it'd also be fun. So,
I hope you're right. I mean, it'll be a pretty cool sight to see if it happens.
Yeah, and I understand, like you mentioned about him, I know one of the main talking points for him, or rather for, I guess, James talking about Drew, is how he's gotten thinner, more agile, stuff like that, has slimmed down a bit. I do think that helps. I don't think they're going to necessarily utilize him much rushing in the red zone, just from also a health perspective too. But so, yeah. Speaking of red zone targets, let's go to the tight ends. So Penn State has a mishmash of tight ends this year: Khalil Dinkins, Luke Reynolds, Andrew Rappelier. Perhaps we'll even say some Andrew Olesh. So we have the touchdown over under set at 10.5 to set the stage for this. Last year, Penn State tight ends, all Penn State tight ends had 11 touchdowns. In 2023, they had 16 touchdowns. In 2022, they had 13 touchdowns. 2021, they had 5. In 2019, they had 11, not counting 2020 because that season never happened. So this is one of those that statistically looking at the what has happened historically, we have on the low end. But I think just not to say Penn State has question marks at tight end, but right, it's a new wave of guys coming in. So where are you at with the tight end touchdowns? Do we think that they can break 10.5?
Well, I still very much like a tight end room despite Tyler Warren being gone, but I'm going to take the under on this. I think I'm looking at Khalil Dinkins' stats much because he's the presumed starter. And, I'd say he's been a good red zone target for touchdowns. He has 5 career touchdown catches. He had 2 of them last year. He only caught 14 passes. Now I figure that number is going to go up this year.
If he stays on that trajectory, he probably wins the Heisman. If he's
We'll see. I don't think he's going to be quite the go-to target that Warren was last year, and especially now with what looks to be a much improved wide receiver room that Drew is going to probably target more frequently compared to the tight ends. And I just also think, as much as I like Andrew Rapplier and Luke Reynolds' potential, I'm just not sure either of them are going to be touchdown catching machines. Like Warren. I think 10.5 feels too high to me. I think they can reach high single digits, but I don't see it hitting double digits.
I also have the under here. And to be clear, this is receiving touchdowns. Tyler Warren has kind of skewed the tight end touchdowns in previous years with, his running ability. But talking strictly, I don't know if we'll necessarily see it. I know Luke Reynolds was a quarterback in high school at one point, so maybe there's Luke Reynolds package. But simply speaking, receiving touchdowns here. I'm also on the under, as talked about before with Drew. I think that the wide receivers improved. Kyron Hudson, Trevor Pena. I think those guys are going to see a lot more of the ball than the wide receivers did last year. Other side of this, and something that I don't think we mentioned, is that I think Nick Singleton continues to improve as a receiver. He's a guy that's going to be focused in the passing game as well. And I think that Kaytron too. I mean, that's right. He's a guy that is trying to show his worth in the NFL. And if you want to play in the NFL, it doesn't matter if you're a first down, second down, or third round back, or third down back. You're going to have to be able to make plays in the passing game. So Kaytron's been fine in the passing game so far. I think that's somewhere where he can improve as well. So I do think that we see, more of an influence from Singleton and Kaytron, or even more of an influence from Singleton and Kaytron in the passing game too. So all those things kind of eat into what's at tight end. Not to say that we don't like what is at tight ends, but just think that this is going to be an under, and we kind of see the wealth spread out a little bit more this year than we have in seasons past. Last one, Timothy, we go to the special teams. Keep it simple. Do we get more than 1.5 special teams touchdowns? Punt returns, kick returns, blocked punts, whatever it might be. Do we get more than 1.5?
Yes, I'm going to say Nick Singleton takes a kickoff to the house, and Devontae Ross takes a punt return to the house. So they'll get at least 2 special teams touchdowns. I think I've read Quentin Martin might be the other returner on kickoffs with Singleton. I wouldn't rule out him possibly housing one either. But I was looking at Ross's return stats from last year at Troy. He had 9 of them, 153 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he was averaging 17 yards a return, which that's pretty solid. For when he gets an opportunity to get a return. Hopefully he will get a chance to strut his stuff, especially maybe against these first 3 opponents, especially. It would be nice to see him showcase his speed and, which, that's something that kind of missed last year. I felt in the punt return game. It was kind of more just play it safe and just take the fair catch. But I remember a couple years ago, Daquan Hardy turned into a real weapon at punt returner. I think he housed a couple, or he housed I think at least two, probably more than that. But he and that really can make a difference in some of these tighter games. It gives you the very least to get yourself some more favorable starting field position. If not some points through other means. So, but yeah, I'm going to take the over on this.
I'm going over as well. Like you said, it feels like we're due for a Nick Singleton touchdown at some point on kickoff returns if he continues his role back there. And yeah, punt return, I think that they have a couple different guys that could make an impact back there. I think we're all expecting Devontae Ross, just given what he did at Troy, to be that guy. But even if it's King Mack coming back from Alabama, I know he's a guy that could be back there. And even Simon Tracy last year, I mean, I thought, like you said, special teams in general was a little shaky. And I think they were more often than not just happy to take the fair catch and get the offense on the field. But even someone like Simon Tracy, right, obviously has really good speed. And if he's back there, I think he's another guy that could house one. So, yeah, I like the over here as well. Just feels like we're due for some big special teams plays. And I think just in general, second year with Justin Lustig, Penn State special teams, I would say struggled last year, but extremely average. And I think we see more of an improvement this year after a full off season with Lustig in there. So give me the over as well. I'm going to toss one in here, Tim. Special teams. What is Ryan Barker's longest field goal he hits this year?
Oh, longest that he hit. What was his long last year?
It's a great question. I'm looking it up now and see if I can find it. It looks like it was 49 yards.
40. Oh, okay, longer than I thought.
Yeah.
So the supposed knock on him was his leg wasn't that strong. But if you make a 49-yarder, it can't be that weak of a leg. Let's see. You know what? Let's be bold here. I'm gonna say he nails a 50+ yarder.
How you got to give me a number?
Exact number.
Yes, we're doing
I'm
exact.
Gonna say 51.
51. Okay, I'm going 47. I hope Penn State is in the scenario where they don't ever feel like they have to try a 50+ yard field goal. I like the idea of it's 4th and 3. Let's go for it. That type of thing. So
my thinking, Pat, is this is maybe maybe end of the half type scenario where you don't have, where it's either you take a shot at the end zone or you just try a long field goal. That's my thinking.
Gotcha.
With this.
Well, I'm going to go. So you go 51. I'll go 47. If either of us get that right, we'll have some sort of prize. I don't know what we'll have, but we'll get some sort of prize. Maybe I'll get your $1,000. So we'll see. Or I'll give you $1,000. Once again, BST bucks. All right. That's all we got. So yeah, next week, before next week, let me just say, so to recap, we had receivers going over 50 receptions. We both agreed on that. Singleton and Kaytron both getting at least 1,000 yards apiece. We both agreed on that. For Dani Denis-Sutton sacks, we had the line set at 9. I went under. Tim went over. Mm-hmm. Tony Rojas tackles, we put at 100. We both went under on that one. AJ Harris interceptions at 1.5. Tim, you went over. I went under. Mm-hmm. Drew Allar passing touchdowns. We set the line at 29.5. I went over. Tim, you went under. Tight end touchdowns at 10.5. We both went under on that. And then special teams touchdowns, we both went over the 1.5. So yeah, mostly agreed on those, but a couple points of dissension. So yeah. Next week we will be discussing the schedule in full. We'll be talking Big Ten. We'll be talking playoffs. We'll be talking, everything you can think about the college football season. We'll be talking about and previewing as we get ready for college football season. We'll get a couple games this weekend, but right, I think next week is when we are in full gear. This is simply just this Saturday with Iowa State, Kansas State, which is a pretty good Ireland game. All
in
things
Dublin, yeah. That'll be a fun way to do the soft. I always think of this week as week 0 as the soft launch of the college football season, whereas week 1's the official launch. So, I'll probably have a chance to watch the Iowa State Kansas State game. I know what else. The other notable FBS games. I think Fresno State is playing at Kansas. When he called Nicky's old team that he previously called the shots at on offense, and then also Stanford and Hawaii. It's also happening.
Can't say I'll be tuning into Stanford and Hawaii. I don't know how good that game is going to be, but yeah, Kansas State, Iowa State, certainly a good one. It's like when you go to those really fancy, like I've seen some people say like week 0 is like the appetizer. Like I wouldn't say it's like an appetizer because there's not enough, but it's like when you go to a fancy restaurant, they give you like that, like before like the main course comes out, they give you that like lemon sorbet thing that's supposed to like cleanse your palate, like between like the appetizer. It's like that. It's like it's getting us ready for what will be the entree of the college football season. So yeah, looking forward to it this weekend. But yes, next Wednesday, and I think we'll go live for this one. I know for these past couple episodes we've been just recording them and then releasing them on Thursday. Next Wednesday at 7 or 8, I guess we'll figure that out. We'll be going live on YouTube to talk about the Penn State season and a whole bunch of other stuff. So Tim, any final thoughts for the people?
No, this is a fun little exercise. This or whatever random trivia questions you throw at me, I always enjoy them. So keep them coming, Pat. But I'm very excited for next week. I think it's one of my favorite videos to do every year, the season preview, and we go through each game on the schedule, talk about it, and give our predictions. So, and three amigos will be back together, I presume. So
yes, Jared should be joining us.
And yeah, I think maybe you've said on a pre-show, Pat, but Jared, as you might figure, he's going to be our new regular on this show. So for weekly previews and post-game shows, should be seeing the three of us, but sometimes we might just have two of us if one of us can't show up. So
yeah, I unfortunately have a full fall of weddings because it's that time of my life where everyone's just getting married and they don't care that I'm a Penn State football fan. But yes, Jarrett will be joining us for basically every other video, so he will be joining us next week as well. All right, I think that's all we got. Thank you guys as always for watching. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video, and we will see you next Wednesday.